All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And this time, we're taking a look at something a little bit spooky.
Ooh, spooky.
A little bit shadowy. This is one that a few of you actually sent in, and I think it's a good one to revisit. It's Early X-Files, Season 1, Episode 6, called Shadows.
Yeah, this is a classic early X-Files episode, one that I think really captures the tone and the feel of that first season.
Yeah, so Shadows first aired October 22, 1993. It was written by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, directed by Michael Cattleman, and it features guest appearances from Barry Primus and Lisa Walls.
Now, for those of you who might be newer to the X-Files universe, this is what we call a Monster of the Week episode, meaning it's a self-contained story.
Right, it's not tied into...
They're not directly tied to the larger mythology.
The larger mythology of the show.
You can enjoy it as like a standalone spooky tale.
Absolutely. And this one is definitely spooky. But before we get into all the shadowy details, let's just lay out kind of the landscape here. So Shadows pulled in, when it first aired, a pretty decent viewership, 5.9 Nielsen rating.
That's about 5.6 million households tuning in.
Yeah, so not bad for, a show that was still kind of finding its legs at that point.
Especially on a Friday night.
Yeah, Friday night on Fox.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, that was kind of a tough slot. But what's really interesting is that Shadows has kind of a mixed legacy, right? Like, I know some of you sent this in because you remembered it being really creepy and really effective. And then others were kind of like, it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, and you see that reflected in some of the production notes and in some of the interviews with the writers and the creator.
It's kind of a mixed bag, yeah.
Like, even the people who made it have kind of mixed feelings about it. So that makes it even more interesting to kind of dissect and see what was going on there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's set the stage. So Shadows kicks off with a pretty shocking crime. The inexplicable deaths of two muggers in Philadelphia. And these aren't your everyday muggings gone wrong. These deaths have a distinct paranormal flavor to them.
Yeah, there's something definitely off about the way these guys died. One of the details that always stood out to me was that their throats appeared to have been crushed from the inside, which, not your typical mugging injury.
No, not at all. And there's evidence of like a massive electrical discharge. Like something zapped them.
Yeah, and what's also interesting is that we learn that Mulder and Scully aren't the first ones on the scene. The case is actually brought to their attention by these two mysterious agents.
Who are these guys?
We don't know. They're just described as being from an unknown agency.
Super shady.
Yeah, it's like somebody else is interested in this case for reasons that are not immediately clear.
Right. So anyway, these agents bring the case to Mulder and Scully, and they learn that the intended victim of the mugging was an office worker named Lauren Kite. And it turns out she's connected to another recent tragedy.
Yeah, Lauren was the secretary of a guy named Robert Dorland, whose business partner, Howard Graves, had supposedly committed suicide a few weeks earlier.
So there's already a sense of like, is there something more going on here?
Yeah.
Like, are these deaths connected in some way?
Right. And, Mulder being Mulder, he's immediately suspicious.
Oh, yeah. He's like, I smell a conspiracy.
And to be fair, there are some early clues that kind of point in that direction. For example, they discovered that one of the dead muggers had ties to a terrorist group called the Isfahan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Which kind of brings in like this whole geopolitical element.
Right, exactly. It's not just a simple mugging anymore. There's something bigger at play. And then there's that creepy image from the ATM security footage.
Oh, yeah, the ghost in the machine. Right.
There's this blurry figure in the background, and it looks a lot like Howard Graves, the guy who supposedly killed himself.
So now it's like, okay, is he a ghost? Did he fake his own death? What's going on?
So many questions.
So naturally, they go and talk to Lauren Kite.
Mm-hmm.
And she's, understandably shaken up by the whole thing.
She's just lost her boss. She's been mugged. And now these FBI agents are asking her all these questions. It's a lot.
Yeah, she's not exactly forthcoming at first. Yeah. She claims to know nothing about the muggers or their deaths. But then things take a turn for the weird after Mulder and Scully leave her apartment.
This is one of the most unsettling scenes in the episode.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, they're just driving along and suddenly their car just goes haywire.
Yeah, it spins out of control, crashes, and there's no sign of any physical tampering.
But they find traces of a huge electrical charge.
Just like with the muggers.
It's like something or someone is messing with them.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear sign that there are forces at work here that are beyond the realm of the explainable.
Yeah, at this point, even Scully's starting to raise an eyebrow.
It's like, okay, something weird is definitely happening.
So they dig deeper into Howard Graves' life and death. And they uncover a couple of interesting things. One is that Graves had a young daughter who died years earlier.
And she would have been about the same age as Lauren is now if she'd lived
Which is just like this weird, eerie coincidence.
Yeah, it's like this echo or this connection between them.
Right. And then they also start to suspect that maybe Graves faked his own death.
Yeah, Scully especially is like, maybe he's still out there. Maybe he's behind all this.
But they check with the pathologist who performed Graves' autopsy, and they confirm that he's definitely dead.
And they even verify that his organs were successfully transplanted.
So it's not like a body double situation.
Nope, he's gone.
So if it's not Graves himself, then who or what is protecting Lauren?
Right, that's the big question. And that's when things start to get really spooky for Lauren. She starts having these disturbing visions.
Oh yeah, she sees blood in her bathtub.
Which is super creepy.
And she starts to believe that Graves was murdered.
And then she gets this veiled threat from her boss, Robert Dorland.
At her going-away party, no less.
Right. He basically tells her that he thinks she knows something that she shouldn't. And that she better watch her back.
Which is not exactly subtle.
No, not at all. So Lauren's freaked out. She calls Mulder and Scully. But before they can get to her, Dorland sends a couple of assassins to her apartment.
And this is where things get really intense. Because an invisible force steps in and protects her.
Yeah, it's like something out of a horror movie.
Mulder actually sees one of the assassins' bodies floating in the air.
Which must have been terrifying to see.
Oh yeah, I mean, imagine seeing that.
So after this supernatural showdown, Lauren finally tells Mulder and Scully everything she knows.
She admits that the company she worked for was involved in illegal arms deals with the Isfahan terrorist group.
And she thinks that Dorland killed Graves to keep him quiet.
Now here's something I always found interesting about this scene. Scully seems to accept Lauren's explanation about a supernatural protector without much resistance.
Which seems kind of out of character for her, especially in these early seasons, where she's usually much more skeptical.
Right. But if you look closely at her demeanor, it's almost like she's playing along.
Yeah, like she's trying to gain Lauren's trust, or maybe she's just humoring her.
Or maybe she's just seen too much weird stuff at this point to completely rule it out.
Who knows? But it's definitely an interesting moment.
So they search the company's offices, but they don't find any hard evidence.
But then Dorland attacks Lauren with a letter opener.
Yeah, he confronts her in her apartment. And he's clearly lost it.
And that's when it seems like Graves' spirit intervenes again.
Right. The letter opener is like guided by an unseen force, and it ends up slicing open the wallpaper, revealing a hidden floppy disk.
A floppy disk.
Yeah, this was 1993, remember?
Oh, right.
So anyway, the floppy disk contains evidence of the arms deals. And that's pretty much the end of the case.
Lauren gets a new job. Dorland is arrested. And the shadowy forces seemingly move on.
But there's this lingering sense that Graves' spirit is still out there. Maybe watching over Lauren? Maybe just waiting for the next injustice to right.
It's a spooky thought.
Yeah, it definitely leaves you with a chill. So that's the basic story of Shadows. But what's really fascinating is the behind-the-scenes stuff.
Oh yeah, the stuff that's not on screen.
The making of the episode is almost as intriguing as the episode itself.
It definitely adds another layer to the whole experience.
So for example, did you know that this episode was actually inspired by a movie?
A movie? Which one?
A horror film from 1982 called The Entity.
Oh wow, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, it's about a woman who's tormented by an unseen malevolent presence.
This sounds creepy.
It is, and apparently Glenn Morgan, one of the writers of Shadows, was a big fan of the film, and he kind of used it as a jumping off point for this episode.
That's cool. I love those little connections between different works of art.
Me too.
Yeah.
And here's another fun fact. The actress who starred in The Entity, Barbara Hershey, actually appeared in The X-Files years later.
No way, really?
Yeah, in season 11. It's like this weird little full circle moment.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And speaking of cool connections, there are some fun Easter eggs hidden in this episode.
Ooh, I love Easter eggs.
Me too. Keep an eye out for a reserved parking sign with the name Tom Braidwood on it.
Tom Braidwood.
Yeah, he was an assistant director on The X-Files at the time, but he later became known as Melvin Frohike from The Lone Gunman.
Oh, right.
So it's like a little nod to a future character.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to rewatch the episode and look for that.
And if you're a Star Trek fan, you might spot another Easter egg.
Oh, tell me.
One of the gravestones has the birth date September 8, 1966 on it, which is the premiere date of the original Star Trek series.
Wow, that's a sneaky one.
I know, right?
The writers were clearly having fun with this episode.
They were. And they were also sneaking in some classic Mulderisms.
Like what?
Well, this episode marks the first time that Mulder makes a joke about Elvis Presley.
Oh yeah, he's always going on about Elvis.
He is. He says something about Elvis being the only person to successfully fake his own death.
Classic Mulder.
Right.
So that was the first Elvis joke.
The first of many.
I guess you could say that was the king of all Elvis jokes.
You could.
Huh.
And there's also a fun little reference to another classic horror theme.
Which one?
Poltergeist. Remember the line, "They're here"?
Oh, yeah, creepy.
Yeah, well, when Mulder mentions poltergeist in this episode, Scully replies with, "They're here."
Haha, nice.
I love those little nods to other movies.
It's like they're winking at the audience.
They are.
Yeah.
And speaking of winking at the audience, Fox actually used a pretty clever tagline to promote this episode.
Oh, what was it?
Don't watch it alone.
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
It's perfect, right? Like, it totally captures the spooky vibe.
It makes you want to grab a friend and hide under a blanket.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Not everyone involved in the making of Shadows was thrilled with the final product.
Oh, really?
Yeah. James Wong, one of the writers, felt that the network's insistence on making the characters more relatable kind of watered down the script.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder what he would have done differently.
I know, right? He actually called it an average episode, although he didn't praise the direction.
So not his favorite work.
Not really.
Yeah.
And Glenn Morgan, the other writer, kind of echoed that sentiment. He said that the episode was a little too ordinary and that maybe the network's desire for a more straightforward narrative kind of held them back.
Yeah, it's always tough when you have to balance your creative vision with the demands of the studio or the network.
It is. But it's fascinating to see how those pressures can shape a story.
Totally.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Chris Carter, the creator of The X-Files, actually had a more positive view of Shadows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he called it very well done and a solid episode.
Huh. So different perspectives.
Very different. Which just goes to show that even the people who make these things can have vastly different opinions about them.
That's true. And I guess that's part of what makes it so fun to talk about them.
Absolutely. And before we wrap up, I should mention that the story of Shadows was actually adapted into a young adult novel.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's called Haunted, and it was written by Ellen Steiber.
Cool. I might have to check that out.
So there you have it. The story of Shadows. A seemingly simple case that spirals into something much more complex and unsettling.
It's a great example of how the X-Files could blend those elements of horror and mystery and conspiracy so effectively.
And it's a reminder that even the early standalone episodes could be just as thought-provoking and memorable as the mythology episodes.
Yeah, it definitely leaves you with some questions to ponder.
It does. Like, how much do the pressures of production influence the creative process? And how do different people involved in a project view the final product?
Great questions.
Well, we'll leave those for you to think about. And as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the X-Files.
We'll see you next time with another fascinating case file.
Until then, keep watching the skies.
And don't forget to check under your bed.
And behind the wallpaper.
You never know what you might find.
Stay spooky.
Stay curious.